and Namibia were the last two teams to put their place in the tournament, which will kick off on the 13th of January 2024, with the final scheduled for the 11th of February. When Afcon took place in Cameroon 2 years ago, 34 Premier League players featured from 12 countries. That number could increase to 49 this time, representing a total of 13 countries during a busy period of the English schedule that includes both Premier League and FA Cup matches. Players could be absent from domestic duty for up to 8 matches, as players are expected to be on international duty for some days before and after the tournament. The mid-season player break will take place between 13th to 27th of January, and this means some players will miss a lot of games, depending on how far they go in the tournament. So, in today's video, I'm going to go through realistically what games each player will miss from each club, based on how well I believe their country will do at the Afcon, and we will see what effect the competition will have on your club, and also maybe we'll tell you which team you should follow or support at Afcon based on your star players going there. So let's begin with Arsenal. Arsenal will have 2 representatives at the Afcon in Thomas Partey for Ghana and Mohamed El Neni of Egypt. Now, El Neni isn't really a big miss, and most won't notice he's gone, but I guess it's slightly frustrating that both Partey and El Neni are gone, as El Neni is the backup kind of for Partey. Both also play for 2 nations who will be expected to go very far in the tournament. Egypt probably more so as the most successful team in the competition, and they reached the final last time out, so expect El Neni to be out for a while. I would say he probably reaches at least the semis, maybe the final, which would mean he misses Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest, Liverpool, West Ham, maybe Burnley, and an FA Cup tie. But as I said before, that's not really a major issue, just a bit worrying for depth because Partey is also not there. That is, of course, if Partey is fit. Now Ghana, while they had a pretty decent World Cup at the last Afcon, they were rubbish. But this year they've got a good team with the likes of Inaki Williams in the side and other Prem players who will get into. So I think Ghana are a lot of people's dark horses for a potential run. Now, will Partey even be fit for the Afcon? I don't know, but let's just assume he is. I could see Ghana at most getting a semi-finals for me, which would mean Partey would also have to play the 3rd place match and will miss the Crystal Palace game, Nottingham Forest game, the FA Cup game, West Ham, and most importantly Liverpool. Now Arsenal have dealt without Partey so far this season, so while this isn't a massive blow, it's not ideal, and with both Partey and El Neni out for all of these games, it's a lot of pressure on the other players to stay fit, as depth is going to be an issue in that midfield in January. Don't be shocked if Arsenal dip into the market. Aston Villa. Bertrand Traoré is the only Villa player going Afcon, but I'm not going to spend much on this as he's barely even a Villa player. He's very much on the fringes and only played 2 games so far this season. Nevertheless, Burkina Faso are a pretty decent team, and I think they will go to the quarterfinals, potentially even the semis. So they might be without a backup option on the wings for a while, but I don't think many at Villa will even notice he's gone. Bournemouth, on the other hand, have quite a few going Afcon. Antoine Semenyo for Ghana, Dango Utara for Burkina Faso, and Hamad Traoré for the Ivory Coast could all go if they get a call up. And that's a bit worrying players. That's a lot of forward options gone from the side. Semenyo, like Partey, could go far, meaning he will pretty much miss all of the possible games. Dango Atara, as I said, for Traore, will probably go to the quarterfinals and maybe a semi-finals, while Hamad Traore could also go very far, a potential final or a semi-final. So, all of these players will be going deep in the tournament, which is a big problem for Bournemouth. Assuming all of these players reach the knockouts, which they should definitely do at the bare minimum, then they will miss some big games, including Liverpool, Spurs, West Ham, an FA Cup tie, and Nottingham Forest. That's not good news for Bournemouth. They will probably have Utara back for Fulham, while Hamad Traore and Semenyo will likely be out for that game, and also the Newcastle game. That leaves the forward line a little thin for some games versus some big sides, so the likes of Cliver, Sinistera, Brooks will need to step up in these tough games. Brentford also have 3 players going with Brighton and Burnley, Cameroon, Johan Wieser, DR Congo, and Frank Onyeka, Nigeria, all likely leaving. Now, Mbeumo is a major concern as he is one of Brentford's best players, and with Cameroon one of the favourites, having reached the semis last time, Mbeumo, if fit, because he is injured right now, is likely to go far. Wieser is also a big miss, as he's one of the players who steps up in Mbeumo's absence. However, I do think he will be back earlier. Onyeka, if he goes, is a miss, but he's not always starting, so they can compensate for that one. And there are some big games they will miss as well, with all players at least missing Nottingham Forest and an FA Cup game. Wieser with DR Congo, I think, will make it out of their group, as their group isn't too bad besides Morocco in there. And Mbeumo and Onyeka I also fully expect to get out of their groups. This means all 3 will miss the Spurs game, which is a major blow. However, I think Wieser probably gets knocked out in the round of 16, quarter-final max, so Wieser will be back for the Man City game if he gets knocked out in the round of 16, but if he goes for quarter-finals, then Wieser won't be there. I also expect Onyeka and Mbeumo to make the quarter-finals, meaning Brentford could face Man City without Mbeumo and Wieser. I think Cameroon and Nigeria will make the semi-finals, so Onyeka and Mbeumo will also miss Wolves away, but be back for Liverpool. So it could be rough for Brentford in the attacking areas, however they will be helped as Ivan Toney should be back to pick up the load. Brighton will also lose some key players in Simon Adingra of Ivory Coast, Tariq Lamptey of Ghana, and Carlos Baleba of Cameroon. I expect all of these 3 to go quite far in the tournament, at least the quarterfinals, meaning that Brighton should be without them for Wolves, Luton and Palace. But those are some winnable games, to be fair, so I think that's not too bad. I think all 3 are also capable of going to the semi-finals, maybe even the final, so I expect at least one of them to be missing the Spurs game as well. The Lamptey one is big, because we've seen how Brighton have struggled at fullback with him injured, and Adingra has also been great this season, but Brighton do have a lot of other attackers, and I think Enciso may be back as well, so that won't be too bad. Baleba has been a bit of a rotational player anyway, so that's not massive. So while they're missing 3 players, and it could be for a little while, I don't think it's that bad for Brighton, who have some decent fixtures as well during this period. Burnley are also largely unaffected, but lose 1 player, two. Lyle Foster for South America and Anasuri for Morocco, who possibly could be massive squad, so can compensate for these guys being out very easily. And to be honest, I don't think Lyle Foster is out for long. South Africa, I don't expect will do much, and at most will make it out their group, but I honestly think they're getting out in the group, so Taylor should only miss one game versus Luton, which is a bit of a big one though. Saruri, however, is playing for the favourites of the competition in Morocco, who I expect will make the final, meaning he will miss Luton, Man City, Fulham and Liverpool. But as I said before, Burnley have a big squad anyway, so it's not a massive miss for them. Chelsea have a rich history of African players, but this year are only missing one player, and that's Nicholas Jackson for Senegal, so any Chelsea fans needing a club to support in Afcon, pretty easy choice for you. Senegal is for one. Now this is kind of a big miss, but not at the same time. Jackson is the starting striker right now, and I mean, it's kind of getting into form. And playing for Senegal, who are the current holders of the competition, he is expected to go deep in the competition. Now I actually don't think Senegal win it again, as their team is a bit past it now, with the likes of Mane, Mendy, Koulibaly not at their best anymore, but still they should get to at least the semi-finals. This means Chelsea will be without their striker for Liverpool, Wolves and Palace. Now that may not sound ideal, especially against Liverpool, but I mean, maybe Broja in those 3 games is a big chance for Broja to prove himself, and with Nkunku back by then, it shouldn't be too much of a miss, and potentially Chelsea will also buy a striker in the January window. So even though Jackson is out, it may not be too bad. Crystal Palace have actually been hit quite hard by Afcon this year, with Jordan Ayew for Ghana, Jeffrey Schlupp for Ghana, and Cheick Doucouré for Mali all potentially leaving. Now Palace fans might be happy Schlupp is going from them, but still that's potentially 2 starting midfielders gone, plus one of their most important attackers in Ayew. All 3 will miss their FA Cup tie and Arsenal trip, so expect a comfy Arsenal win, to be honest, in that game. I expect them all to get out of their groups as well, although Doucouré maybe could come back early, but if not, I expect them all to miss the Sheffield United game, which isn't too bad. Doucouré, I think, will be back for the Brighton derby, as I don't think they're making it past the round of 16, but if he does make it to the quarters, which could happen, then in the Brighton game it will be without Cheick Doucouré. Ayew and Schlupp, I think, both miss the Brighton game, and if they make the semis, possibly the Chelsea game, but they will be back for Everton. So it's not an ideal January at all for Crystal Palace, but you've got 2 Ghanaians, so I guess support Ghana if you're a Palace fan. Everton also get hit badly with their midfield being gutted in January. Both Abdoulaye Doucouré, Mali, Idrissa Gueye for Senegal will be gone. Both should miss their FA Cup tie, Fulham away, which is a bit of a big game, and also crucially a potential Carabao Cup semi-final if Everton get there. That's a big miss, as both have been good this season, especially Doucouré, who, if you're an Everton fan, are secretly hoping Mali don't go very far. Fortunately for you, I think, as I said before, they get out the groups and maybe quarterfinals, but I don't think any more than that. If Mali make the quarterfinals, then Doucouré is out for the Spurs game, but I don't think they will, so I think he will be back for that. However, I don't think Idrissa Gueye will be. I expect Gueye to also miss the Man City game, meaning Everton will be without their ideal midfield for a bit of January, and this could be a bit of a difficult spell for Everton, especially with Doucouré out, because he's so crucial to the way they play. Now luckily for Everton, when they face Fulham, they will also misses. Both, as I said, will miss the Everton match and also a potential Carabao Cup semi-final. Funnily enough, Everton and Fulham play each other in the quarters, so at least one of them will play that semi-final without two key players. As I said earlier, I think Nigeria will probably make the semi-finals max, meaning they will also miss Burnley and Bournemouth, which are some very big relegation games, so that's a really tough one for Fulham. But if you're a Fulham fan, support Nigeria at the Afcon. Liverpool have just one player going to Afcon, which we all know is of course Mo Salah for Egypt. So Liverpool will be Salahless for their game versus Bournemouth, guaranteed. Now Egypt, as I said, are favourites, or one of the favourites for this, and therefore you expect will definitely get out of their group, meaning it is almost guaranteed that, good news Chelsea fans, Mo Salah will miss the Liverpool-Chelsea game unless an Egyptian disaster occurs and they don't make it out the group. Liverpool fans will be hoping Egypt also avoid a shock round of 16 exit, because if Salah goes to the quarter-finals, which again is very likely, then Liverpool will also be without Salah for the massive potential title deciding game versus Arsenal. After that, though, Liverpool fans can relax a bit, as if Salah reaches any further stage, he will just miss the Burnley game, which is fine. But no Salah for Chelsea and potentially Arsenal. That could make for some very interesting games, and I'm very intrigued how Liverpool do in those games. Luton could be missing two of their players this year, with Issa Kapoor, Burkina Faso, and pleasurable, DR Congo, set to represent their nations. Now, the way the Luton fixtures work, both are actually only guaranteed to miss an FA Cup tie, but not Premier League games. That's if both get grouped, which is unlikely, especially in Kapoor's case. But if both reach the knockouts, which I expect, then they will be missing the Brighton game. Pelly should be back for the Newcastle game, however, I expect Kapoor to miss that, but return for the massive relegation game versus Sheffield United, unless Burkina Faso get to the semi-final, which there's a chance for happening, but I doubt it. So it's not the worst situation for Luton this year. Man United have perhaps the most complicated set of players to predict, with Andre Onana, Cameroon, Sofiane Amrabat, Morocco, and Hannibal Mejbri, Tunisia, all maybe going. Now, let's just get the guarantees out of the way. Amrabat and Hannibal are definitely going, and Amrabat I expect will go all the way, with Morocco meaning he will miss Wolves, West Ham and Villa. Three actually very, very tough games, so that's a big miss. Hannibal will be out for a while, with Tunisia, who I think will probably go to the quarterfinals, maybe semis if they get a good run, but we'll just say quarterfinals. So there will also be no Hannibal for West Ham or Wolves, meaning the midfield depth could be a bit of an issue there. As for Onana, well, I have no clue if he's going or not, as he's had a very weird relationship with the national team recently, but let's just assume he goes for the sake of simplicity. If he does, then I think Cameroon will get to the semi-finals max, meaning he will miss the Wolves game, West Ham and Villa game, with Amrabat, and that Turkish goalkeeper will have to fill in for those three tough fixtures. I can't remember his name. Another spanner in the works is also Wan-Bissaka, who apparently has received an option by the DR Congo, but hasn't accepted yet. So let's assume he goes, again for the sake of the video. Then Man United will have just Diego Dalot for the Wolves game as their right back, but I think that will be the only game he misses, as Congo I don't think will go further than the round 16. If they do, then he'll also miss West Ham. So it could be a tough one for United as well if all of those guys go. Man City actually have no African players, so they have no worries, and the same for Newcastle, who will be unaffected. Forest, however, are the complete opposite, having the most African players leaving in the Prem, with 7 expected to go, and they're all pretty important as well. Taiwo Awoniyi, Nigeria, Ola Aina for Nigeria, Serge Aurier and Willy Bolly, and Ibrahim Sankare for Ivory Coast, and Moussa Niakate and Cheick Kouyaté for Senegal all will be departing in January. They all play for big nations as well, who expect to go far, which doesn't help Forest either here. I expect all of those will want at the bare minimum to make the quarterfinals, meaning they will be without those players, those 7 players for the Brentford, Arsenal and Bournemouth game. I think all of them are also capable of making the semi-finals as well, meaning they potentially could be without them for Newcastle game as well. This is tough for Forest as a lot of them are crucial to the team. Taiwo Awoniyi is the starting striker, Ola Aina is the starting fullback, Aurier again starts most games, Bolly and Niakate are the starting centre-backs, Sankare is a starter, Kouyaté's in and out, so this is going to be really, really tough for Forest, but to be fair, they've signed 5,000 players, so I think they should have enough depth to deal with this, but it's not ideal at all. Sheffield United are also missing a large number of players, with Ismaila Koulibaly for Mali, Anis Ben Slimani for Tunisia, and Benny Traore for Ivory Coast, and Yasser Larouki all missing. All 4 should get out of their groups, meaning they will miss the West Ham and Crystal Palace games. I expect Koulibaly to be back for Aston Villa, and same potentially with Slimane, but Benny Traore and Larouki probably won't be there. If Ivory Coast or Algeria make the semi-finals, then they will also be out for a massive game versus Luton. Now, to be fair, none of these players are key guys. However, given Sheffield's injuries and lack of depth, they need all the help they can get, so having all of these depth options go is not a good situation. Spurs will be missing their midfield pair of Pape Matar Sarr for Senegal and Yves Bissouma of Mali, which is going to cause a lot of problems. Both should get out of the groups, meaning they will miss the Brentford game. Now Bissouma I expect will be back for the Everton away game, but again, if he goes for quarterfinals, which definitely could happen, then he's not playing that game. Sarr I expect will miss the Everton trip for sure, and probably the Brighton game as well. So while this is not the best missing 2 midfielders who have been good this season, it could be worse, and I guess I'll be hoping Mali don't have a great run. Also, I swear Mali have some insane midfielders. Literally every single Mali player I've mentioned so far has been a centre mid. Anyway, West Ham, they've been hit badly by Afcon this year, with 4 players missing. Mohamed Kudus for Ghana, Said Ben Lama for Algeria, Naif Aguerd for Morocco, and Maxwell Cornet for Ivory Coast. And all of those players play for big nations you would expect at the very least get to the quarterfinals. That means they will be without their starting centre-back and 3 attackers for Sheffield United, Bournemouth and Man United. So during that time, the likes of Bowen, Antonio, Fornals, Okpona, they need to step up. Aguerd, I expect, will go all the way, so they will be without their rock at the back, also for the tough Arsenal game, but I expect Ben Rama to be back, and maybe Cornet. Kudus could be back, but I reckon we'll make the semis with Ghana, meaning Kudus will miss the Arsenal away. Honestly, West Ham, considering their games are quite tough, they also have a lot of games compared to other sides during this period and have key players leaving. I think West Ham might be the most harshly affected side here. Let me know. And finally, Wolves have Ryan Aït-Nouri for Algeria, Boubacar Traoré for Mali, another midfielder from Mali, go Wolves, there's not that big a blow, as Wolves have a decent amount of depth in midfield for Traore and cover with Johnny.